Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today I have acquired a course and leg identifier from Weems and Plath, and I'm gonna try explain as to why they're brilliant and why everyone should have one. So let me just give you a quick guide as to what you're actually looking at here, what I've brought for you. So in terms of, we can start with the sector search. And the sector search, basically, you see you have your 360 degrees all the way around. You have your sectors here, and you have a little time box, which you can see over here, which is meant to be written in these slots here. So in the time box, you're supposed to put your time when you start, which is at the center here, basically. You also have your time and distance table at the bottom, as well as that you have short instructions right here at the bottom, which tells you basically how to use this if you've forgotten. The other side basically looks the same, it's just that it's a different search pattern. So you have an expanding square search here. You also have these arrows pointing all the way around. You can turn these and adjust them to the course which you're obviously coming from. And again, you have your speed and time table, your distance and time table, and again, some instructions basically right here. If you've never heard of sector search or expanding square search, it's a little bit difficult to explain them in this video, well, right now. But for the most part, it is important that you know that these two search patterns are being searched through water and with speed through water. So for both search patterns, we will only be using our clock and compass. This is a purely clock and compass navigation search pattern. So clock in terms of a stopwatch, and compass in the sense that we are using a heading and not actually our course over ground, which is really important. Why? Because you want to experience a drift similar to the object, which is going to be without their own propulsion in the water, just drifting. So you want to try to drift with the same parameters as the object. So in this example, I'm going to be showing you the sector search. And as you can see, you have your 360 degrees right around, starting north at the top. And you have your sectors here, which you can rotate. And what you have here is your first leg, and you have your last leg labeled here as well. You have your legs 1, 2, and 3, and these ones are called the so-called cross legs. Now, once you have your time and distance speed table here, for this example, I will choose that we have a radius of 0.5, so my diameter is going to be 1 mile. So for this example, imagine that we have an incident right here in the center, and what we are assuming is that within 1 hour of this incident occurring here in this position, that the person cannot have drifted all too far from its original position in 1 hour. So it's going to be somewhere within this area, which I have defined as 1 mile for my example. Of course, you can choose any rather large distance here, but in my example, I will be sailing with 10 knots, and I will have a radius of 0.5 nautical miles. Now, where to start is exactly here in this example in the center at your datum, and you will always start with leg 1. Now, you will always choose the course which is convenient to you. So if you're coming from a southerly direction, go towards the north, your first leg will be somewhere towards the north maybe. And if you're coming from the north and sailing south, your first leg would be something south, I assume. So in my first example, we will be sailing towards the east. We will be sailing from the datum towards 090 as our first leg. Now, because this is a clock and compass navigation, I will have to check what my actual time is going to be, because we are not going to be using the actual distance, but we will be using the time, because we want the current and the wind, the environmental factors affecting the person, the incident here. We also want them to affect us the same way, or well, roughly the same way. So we don't know how the current is setting, so we will just go with the time. So if we're actually having some drift, some current coming from the east towards the west, I will obviously be coming a little bit short here in my distance, but that's exactly what we want to do, because if the drift is setting towards the west, I will also be wanting to further this towards the west. Okay, so I will be starting 3 minutes. So I will starting here in the center. I will start my stopwatch and count 3 minutes towards the outer edges. And once I've reached the outer edge of my search area, I will have to do a course change of 120 degrees. Now you can do this either to starboard or to port, but the mariner tends to like to go to starboard, and it does make things a little bit easier. So in this case, we will also be going to starboard, obviously. And our next course is going to be this A, but A is here, it's parallel to this one. So we will have to check the course is going to be 210 degrees. So that's our next course for the next 3 minutes until we reach again the outer edge of the circle. And then have another course change of another 120 degrees for our second leg towards the northwest, and sailing with a course of 330, as we can read right here. Now this distance is going to be 6 minutes as we're passing through the center towards the outer edge again before we start another course change toward the east. Again, letter B here parallel to this B letter here, and we can see here that our B again is 090, so this is the course that we're going to be steering for another 3 minutes. And then again, a course change of 120 degrees for our third leg. Again, 6 minutes, so 3 minutes, 3 minutes, course change towards the northwest again. And this is going to be parallel to this search. So this is going to be again 330 degrees until we have reached our last leg. We can see labeled right here with the words end, ending in the center again. Now, assuming that we have not found anything so far, what we would now do is that we would add another 30 degrees, so 120, and sail the search pattern again, and which just makes sure that we have come through this area a little bit close knitted. So we would add 30 degrees and sail it again. The expanding square basically works more or less the same way. We have, again, this is a clock and compass search pattern. So we will have, again, our timetable, which we will use, and we have our arrows where we will start and where we can read the directions which we need to be sailing. So because it's a clock and compass navigation, we will again be using this timetable. What I do find a little bit unfortunate in this is that the distances here are rather large and are not actually, well, at least in our case, not very convenient, because at least in Germany we say that a expanding square is going to be sailed with a track spacing, which is the distance here basically, which extends always by the factor of 1. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, expanding by 1. We will be using this distance usually with 0.1 nautical mile, which is not in here. So I find that a little bit inconvenient. Of course, you can use this with larger distances here. For persons in water searches, we will always be using 0.1 nautical miles. It's not really usable for larger vessels, but especially for smaller vessels, it is quite applicable. So in my example, either we can use here the 0.5 and use 3 minutes, in which case it would be expanding by the factor of 0.5 here. But for us in Germany, we usually say track spacing 0.1. So that would result by 10 knots as an example, we would have 36 seconds. And as you can see, 36 seconds to sail one leg, two legs, and then obviously this would be 72, 72, 108, 108 seconds. That is quite quick, especially in the beginning, but because one cable is actually quite large distance if you can take into consideration what you are looking for. And if you're looking for a person in water, if you imagine a head, probably it's just rather this big in the water. It's not actually quite large. And if you have larger waves and some sea spray, it's actually quite difficult to see. And I don't assume that zero point 0.5, you'll actually be able to see a person in that distance. And also the Yamsa would not recommend that at all. So it's kind of a shame that it's not with a smaller trick spacing here. But anyways, it is the simpler search pattern of the both sides which we have. So we will have here, again, we will start, especially where it says start, in the center, and we will start our stopwatch. And we will be sailing with a northerly course, which would be 000 in this case here, which makes it easier. And after, well, in my case, 36 seconds, because we're sailing with 0.1 nautical miles, um, then we would have 36 seconds, 36 seconds. Our course change is always 90 degrees. So you can see my arrow is pointing down towards the 90 degrees right here. And after another 36 seconds, we will have another course change of 90 degrees. Again, adding 90, equaling to 180 for another two courses. So we have 180 to 70 towards the west. And then we add 108 seconds towards the north, another 108 seconds towards the east, and then you just continue expanding this and getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you have reached a rather large area. And then you have also, maybe you've passed 1 hour. Usually both sector search and the expanding square are usually always being used to be executed only for until 1 hour after the incident. So afterwards, you would probably switch to a more organized search pattern applicable for various and multiple vessels to be sailed at the same time, such as a parallel track search, which you can use then in that case. So I do hope that I could shed some light into this mysterious cardboard and assist you maybe if you were to be using this, or if you ever come into the situation where you have to sail one of these search patterns. And just for your information, I am not receiving any money for this. This is not an ad or anything like that. I just really do like them, and I think they're a great way of shortcutting and making these search patterns, which are so essential but are so underestimated, mostly because they're so confusing, they're a little bit complicated, and it's a great way to make them easy and to make them work for you. So that's why I think, or that's why I thought it was a good idea to share this with you. So if you stuck around until the end, thank you very much for watching, and remember to subscribe and hit that bell button.